Hey, welcome back into the channel here. And this is Off Script with Rip. And we've had some great interviews so far along the journey here. And this one that you're going to witness, it's with Maryland head coach Brenda Frese. And the women's team down there has been one of the best teams, not just in the region, but in the country over the last 2 decades. So I had a chance at the Iron Rooster here to sit down and chat with her about life, the NIL, college and coaching values, and kind of where the game's going and what to expect here for the Terps moving into 2024, 2025. You guys enjoy.
Are you as fiery as a coach as you are a pickleball player?
Moments where I really enjoy it, but it's more because the camaraderie with our staff. But I am internally competitive. I like to win.
I still have my competitive drive, but I was curious. I have a little bit more perspective now. If we lose, not happy. Yeah. But I'm like, well,
get through it
I'm all right. Yeah. Is my body okay? Yeah. Great.
Like with your length, you can get to a ball and you're not having to chase the length of a tennis court because you're on half of the tennis court.
You make me feel better about myself with pickleball. Everyone wants to bring me down in my group. Like Brad right there talking about ping pong, I'm going to get destroyed. A lot of other people don't believe I'm as athletic because I'm kind of like lanky and
because when
goofy.
The ball comes in the net, you would be able to reach for things and slam it. So you would have and if it was coming over, you can get to it. So
I need you around more to hype me up. Yeah. I don't get that enough. Basketball to me is always, that's why when I watched, was 2006 was the championship here? Yep. Memory's still there. Those Maryland years. I think the Maryland men's team won in 2002.
Yep.
You guys won 2006. And that was a sport for me I was hooked on watching.
Yeah.
Hooked on it. Still am. That's why this is really cool for me to talk to you about inner workings of basketball, what's happening.
Yeah.
And then you've just continued to find different ways that actually thinking back to it, that championship year, it was this is where my memory's going to get bad. But so Duke in the championship, correct?
Yep.
The 3 that sent it to overtime.
Yep.
What else am I missing in that sequence there? Because you guys were highly ranked that year.
Yeah,
too.
that year we beat UNC to go to the championship game to beat Duke. So when UNC, the ACC rivalry was fun. But a fun fact. When my first year, when I came to Maryland, we went down to Duke and we lost by 51 points.
Your first year?
And then, I mean, the worst loss I've ever endured. And then 4 years later, here we are, the storybook ending, playing Duke, national championship game in 4 years. And then it goes to overtime. And that year with that team, we were 6-0 in overtime, 5-0 at the time. So when it went to overtime, the kids were like, we're winning this. And we were down 10 at halftime.
I remember that. It was the comeback.
Yeah.
51. So that's still till this day, is that the most, that was the most humbling loss?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was coming in around the corner and my phone rang and it was the AD at the time, Debbie Yao. And because I was reeling, why did I take this job? What am I doing here? I left, a great job at Minnesota with 2 All-Americans. And she said, Brenda, I know last night was a tough night. And she said, but one day I brought you here. We're going to beat Duke. I mean, she had this because I was 32. So I'm 54 now. So at 32, you're that's totally different.
That's, I think that's also just great. It's perspective on it. I think everyone, especially nowadays, fair to say people were expecting a little bit more immediate success.
And
that's even with the whole, with players coming in, the expectations. Yeah. And I even remember when I was 2012, 2013 would have been my first year of college for baseball. And I remember I was thinking I was going to come in and I felt that I could play. And then when I got there, deep down I went, man, these guys are way. I wouldn't say that they were better than me. They were more prepared than I was for this moment. And it was humbling at that point. And it wasn't exactly what I thought, but I knew it would take time to get to it.
Yeah.
Now it's a little bit different. And for coaching, you had to probably be one of the youngest coaches too at the time in the sport. I don't know who else
Yeah.
But
I
so
mean, a
for-
lot of times you're not getting a head coaching job before 30. And I think I was 26 or 28 with my first head
First one.
coaching job at Ball State. So, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so lemon cherry, strawberry cheesecake. Other flavors have been Oreo, brown sugar.
Oreo would be good.
Oreo is very good.
That is insane.
It's nuts.
I've never tried these because I didn't want to like.
You don't
love
want to.
I
That's
didn't
the
want to
pro-
love them because then I knew I would like
That's-
dab more, right?
this is my dilemma each time I come in here. I go, Kyle, if you
Right.
give me one, I'm gonna eat the whole thing.
right.
But I still can't believe. Well, no, I can believe how frustrating that the whole process is now with NIL. And you kind of touched on it. I know it doesn't take away the joy for you for coaching, but it definitely changes what you have to do now.
I used to love recruiting where your 4-year models and like what point guards you wanted to get, wings and the classes, and when you were out recruiting, and
Yeah.
and it's so hard now for me to even be focused with high school kids because they're not going to present in their first year, and then whether kids are going to stay because they're going to play under 10 minutes. Everyone wants to play right away. They can't see the process.
Right.
A lot of times you don't have parents anymore. Like you only have a 4-year career.
Yeah.
So if you're not playing, then they move them.
Yeah.
A lot of crazy parents. And so it just took the joy away from high school recruiting
Yeah.
to, now putting all your focus, like I said, in their 1-year roster.
Does that put more stress then, or at least when you're looking at if you are going to bring in, it's not even high school anymore, but when you're bringing in recruits, now dealing with more than just the recruit with parents that's become, I know I was telling people when they were younger, and I've talked with a lot of college coaches or even getting to professional, it's, of course, parents want to be involved in their kids. It's their kids.
Yep.
But there is a line here of how much coaches then it can be a turnoff to be, hey, you always had the best intention for their child coming in, but now they're being a little bit too involved. Is that kind of wanting more?
100%, because like when I came into college, and similar to like professors, right? Like I read something one time where like as a coach in college, you have more influence on a student athlete than even a regular student that goes to a class 3 times a week for a semester.
Yeah.
Because we get them for 4 years, 5 years, and you get them every day. So you get that influence, and hopefully your intentions are to mentor. Like I love mentoring kids to watch them, to get them ready for the real world after college, and watching them through their ups and downs in college. But now the influences, you have less of an impact because of all the influences now on the outside, and whether that be the parents and their opinions, grandparents, but then social media and like just things they're seeing, and there's just so much more impacting them than it used to be. That, and this from sports, the coach voice, the coach was powerful and impactful.
Yeah.
And at times you still are, but like to a lesser degree.
Yeah. Well, I mean, also we were talking about it. I mean, you've been now 22 years at Maryland, right? Mm-hmm. 22 years at Maryland. You build up a level of trust and consistency, and also it's the program, the culture that's been built, but the ways that made you successful and the program successful, and your athletes to feel like they're going on to bigger and better things after. Now it's a whole other variable because, conferences are realigning, people are offering money. What is the biggest challenge now, you think, in your mind, to reach that same success in your mind?
Well, first and foremost, you have to be adaptable because of everything you just listed to. If you think you're going to do things the way you used to do, you're just going to get passed by.
Yeah.
I mean, you can ask Blockbuster. You can, you're going to, you've watched it. So you have to have that growth mindset. And, no question, the money you're seeing now with television revenue coming into play, and the media rights anymore, like it's at a whole nother level in NIL. So it's all like so different, complicated, to
Great word.
to what it used to be. And it's not going back. And the genie is out of the box.
Yeah.
Transfer portal is not going back. Now kids used to have to sit out. Now they don't. Then you could only transfer once. Now you can transfer every year as long as you're in good academic standing. I don't know what that does to a player's transcript, but I think some of it it's a little sad, I think, because we talked about, I got to go to the Olympics and watch Alyssa Thomas, the most decorated player in Maryland history. She has the all-time leading scorer, points and rebounds in men's or women's basketball. She's the highest player to ever come through Maryland. Well, when you're transferring, you lose all that. You're not breaking records. You're not having your name and number up in the rafters. When you come into a program for 2 years, how are you getting your name and number up in the rafters? It's not happening.
It's like a legacy you build with the institution or place that you're going to, and it's almost. And this isn't a fair comment that I'm saying, because it's not how I'm trying to represent it. But what's happening as well, when you make a commitment, your goal is, you hope that you're making that commitment to be there, and that's when I went through my college process. If I could have gone back, I probably would have gone to Wake Forest out of high school because of just the coach, and the coach left at South Carolina, and I still felt it'd be the right fit. Didn't turn out to be the right fit. Went to a junior college, and then I was going back. I committed to Wake for my junior year, so I was going to go to that school. Got drafted in the process, and I signed, and the rest is history. But I think you're right. It's when you're committed to a place, is you might not get it right, but your hope is this is a place that you see yourself for the next 4 years. And I think that's changed. And I always loved that. I mean, when I went to a place, I wanted to become in the athlete world, I wanted to be a legend if I could. Build up to it. But when you jump from place to place, it might be fulfilling on the short term, but the long term there is, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's
and I think you are supposed to struggle in life. You are supposed to have tough times. And when we shield, our, players to, protect them that, they're not playing, let me switch schools, and, versus the satisfaction. Like I look at, as the head coach at Maryland, I had to grind my way up from, a graduate assistant to a GA and do all those jobs to learn how to be a coach. And then when I was a head coach, I went from Ball State to Minnesota to Maryland. And for me, there's a sense of gratitude now that if I would have missed all those steps and all of a sudden it's like you take over at Maryland, one, I would never have been prepared. Two, I would not have been here for 22 years. And, that's the thing. I think that your growth comes from tough times. Whenever I remember when my twin boys were at their first camp and one of my boys, got an award and the other one didn't. And it was the first camp I could get to in my schedule, and it happened to be that day. And when my one didn't get a trophy, he came over and just sobbed in my arms. Yeah. And all I did was just hold him, and that's part of life. You got to figure out you weren't good enough in this camp. You gotta figure this out. I'm not gonna say, oh, it's okay, maybe next time. You got to figure this out.
I think that's a great part of it. I think it's the harsh realities. And I think that's the instant gratification. I think that's another word for me. The instant gratification that you want to go out there and there's one thing that you expect to be successful. You want to be successful, but you expect that it's just going to come to you that. That's a harsh reality. And that was, like I said, my college thing. I thought, I'm going to go to South Carolina. I'm going to play a lot. They're a national championship contender. And I get there and I'm going, well, damn, he's better than me right now. He's more prepared. He's more prepared. Yeah. And I can sit there and go, man, I don't suck by any means, but they have earned it. I have to earn the right. I got to keep working. And eventually when you get there, then you feel better about it. And when I got drafted and moved on, I had a couple ankle injuries, didn't know if I could. The one thing I wanted to figure out in pro ball was, could I do it? I had injuries, so I couldn't tell.
Yeah.
And then I finally started to get the hang of it to go, you know what? If I don't make it to the big leagues, and I fell just short of that, I felt really proud of where I got to. Yeah. And I'm glad. I like getting, I'm not saying I like getting kicked in the teeth and failing a lot. We talked about baseball. Striking out 4 times in a game sucks.
I can't imagine.
Oh my gosh. I did that. I started off a season. It's a good example. I had more extra base hits than I had singles. So I was hitting doubles. Somehow I lugged out a triple. I told you I'm not built for speed or agility.
Right.
Outfielder might have misplayed the ball. But then I felt really good. And then as soon as I started feeling really good, swung and missed.
Right?
I was 0 for 5, 4
Humbling.
strikeouts, and had 2 chances to win the game late. And I struck out both those times. We ended up losing, and I felt miserable. So it was just a good reminder. But then I figured it back out, and there was a good story with it. But, that was a good story. Did you have any? So we talked about a good moment with the national championship, talked about with you being humbled. Is there any other stories in between of your tenure, doesn't have to be at Maryland, that you were like, you know what, no one probably thinks about this, but this was a moment that I go back to? Do you have any of those? You can sit on that.
You know, I mean, when you were talking, I'll tell you a moment from my childhood.
There we go. Perfect.
You know, my parents, signed us up for everything. And my sister and I were on a swim team.
Yeah.
And I tell my boys this all the time because this is teamwork and camaraderie. And I hated swimming. I was really weak. Like a lot of people, they classified my age and put me down in age group so I could be competitive in the pool. But my parents signed us up to do this. And you got to get in the cold water at 6 a.m. for these swim meets. I hated everything about it. But so the one day we had a swim meet and we had to ride our bikes. And I intentionally made sure that we were late because I didn't want to be in the swim meet. And so as soon as we kind of pulled in where we were supposed to go into, the bus was already gone.
Yeah.
Left my sister and I because we didn't get there on time. And when they came back or the next day at the pool, they had lost by, 1 point. And you got points just by like being in events.
Yeah.
And so it was for me like an aha moment of like, oh my God, I let this team down. If I would have just showed up and put in the work. And it was such an early point of my life, so impactful that I had no clue. It was just like, I don't want to swim.
Yeah.
And I use that with my boys all the time is like, you have this opportunity it's bigger than you.
Yeah.
And I'm really fortunate, I think, growing up in, like we talked about, in the Midwest and Iowa and, 5 other siblings and my parents, worked 2 jobs. So, I feel like a lot of that, my value system, work ethic, just things being bigger than yourself within a team sport, have really helped me, in this world of coaching.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that those moments then prepared you the best for and why you're so good now. Eric DaCosta for the Ravens said when he got to Baltimore, one of his first jobs was a disgruntled player that got cut during training camp. They said, hey, Eric, I need you to go clean out his apartment. He trashed it. So he did. And then he said, I was the equipment manager. I was a field manager. I worked security. Mm-hmm. And Ozzie Newsome said, you're going to learn this business from soup to nuts was the phrase. And Eric's like, you know what? When I did move up and I got more into scouting and now I'm the GM, I had such an appreciation for how things have to work.
Yeah.
And that ultimately made him a better GM. So I think it sounds like that's what's made you such a good coach, because you're not going to say this. I told you before we started. I mean, you're one of the best coaches out there, period. Despite, I know you want to win another national championship. Who wouldn't? But, but it's that consistency. You don't stay here and have the success if you don't have a good foundation of it. So, okay, let's go into the mind of Brenda Frese for one moment. How would you then describe what you build your program around? Like if you have a style, theme, however you want to describe it.
First thing I say is family. I mean, relationships are the utmost importance. I think I was raised 2 ways, with a really high work ethic.
Yeah.
I got to watch my parents work 2 jobs at a really young age. They had their day job and then real estate and And that's how you afforded 6 kids to be able to do the things that we were able to do. My dad and mom gave us this adventure of travel, so we got to see what's outside of Iowa, which got me to understand I could go play at Arizona and go to Maryland and be the head coach there. But within all of that was our family and our, siblings. Like, we had each other's backs. We, through, the good times and the bad times. And I've taken that into our program. And, that's where the leadership style, it's top down, where it's like my staff, they embody that, the family atmosphere, having a voice. We're all really, really connected. Like I said, I got them all involved. We all play pickleball together. And, there's just that sense of family. And then from our players, it's the same thing. And I think that is why you are able to be consistent. Is this job is hard enough for athletes. They give up a lot of their time, but when you feel empowered and heard, and that it is, a family type atmosphere, relational, that you're not just being used to win games, because there are programs that, what can you do for me to help me win a game? I just think when, you're going to run through a wall for your teammates, for your coaches, when you have that kind of environment within your program.
Yeah. I was going to say, because right now you're very calm, cool, relaxed, having fun. I don't know, when you're in the game, you can get pretty intense.
I'm passionate.
You are. Okay, that's another good word. Passionate. I love that. You are very passionate
and competitive.
Passionate and competitive.
But you have to have that healthy balance, right? Like I grew up, my sister and I, she's 2 years younger than me, we won a state championship together. So I love to compete. My ego is competition, winning. It's a very healthy ego. You have to have an ego in coaching, but it's competitive. I love to win, right?
Yeah.
We're across the court. I want to beat you. But at the end of the day, then I can go back to being Brenda Frese, being a mom of my twin boys, having the perspective. I had a son at 2.5 who was diagnosed, back in the day with cancer. And now is a thriving, 16-and-a-half-year-old boy. But I think at that point I was so tunnel vision when I first got to Maryland and wanting to win a national championship and wanting to show that I could extend my contract and not get fired. I had no balance. And when all of that happened, it stopped me in my tracks and completely changed me. And there again, you go through like something that was the hardest thing I've ever gone through in my life. My son not knowing whether he was going to be with us in tomorrow, a year from, when you hear cancer, to taking something of our lowest of low moments to then gaining a perspective of like, slow down, appreciate right now, appreciate whatever you're in. If you're around your team, be present. If you're around your family, be present, because tomorrow's not guaranteed. Yeah. And, I think that's the biggest thing is when we go through, our tough times, like there is going to be something that comes out of it that you can really learn that's going to be beneficial.
It's perspective. It's the perspective of how everything is. You love basketball. You love your team. You want to win, but you also have the big picture of there's other things in life that are just as valuable. And I could definitely relate to that,
I think when we pass away, they're not going to put your stats, my stats on the tombstone. Yeah. Like people are going to talk about.
I sure hope not for mine.
Right.
Yeah.
Like what kind of human being were you?
Yeah.
And, like those are the things to me is like, I hope, our players are always talking about the memories we made and, the trips we went on and the different things that we did that have nothing to do with running sprints or, being in the weight room. And yes, like that builds grit and that work ethic that you need to have. Like we talked about for your next job, you learn that level of discipline that it takes, but it's the memories that you've made out of it that are huge. We took our team this year to Croatia in June, and the amount of memories we still, we talk about it all the time of like what that experience was like. That's life-changing.
What do we do over in Croatia?
Ooh, well, first of all, if you've never been,
haven't been,
put it on your bucket list.
Okay.
So unreal. And we played, we got 10 practices ahead of time. We got 2 games, but it was really the bonding. We did zip lining. We did a hike through this area that is indescribable of the beauty. We did a catamaran all-day boat ride. We went to, Split and Dubrovnik and Zagreb and Slovenia and, an experience of a lifetime that, a lot of these players, who knows, it may be their only time to ever go overseas, and we were able to take them over.
Yeah, that's great team bonding, beautiful place. Now it's going to be on Jamie's bucket list, I can guarantee her. When I'm like, hey, we're going to Croatia, Brenda said we need to go. Jamie's going to look up all of these. So I have
the perfect honeymoon for you that I can give to you.
Can help me with that?
Croatia and Greece.
Ooh.
That you will. I can plan it for you.
Brenda Frese, Maryland women's basketball coach and also travel planner for Ryan Ripken.
I got it
would be
for
fantastic.
you.
I would appreciate that. Gosh, you're funny. You're
low key.
You are. You're low key. You're low key funny. I think I still laugh because maybe the perception what people always have, they only see you on the court or they see you in an interview,
TV,
and I already knew that beforehand. I heard how great you are off the court. There's a lot of people for some reason think that I'm way more serious, and maybe I am, but I'm a goof. I like to just have fun.
Yeah.
My teammates, I'm glad. I tell them now when I have to interview, they go, well, you're a part of media. I go, well, be honest here. I said, if I share too many secrets, I said, more about me as in the process. I said, you could, that maybe I don't want getting out now. I got nothing to hide on that.
Right. I know, but I don't like when, because TV or if you see in person, right? Like you're competing. So it's an intensity level. But I always love when people come up to me and they'll be like, wow, you are exactly what your Instagram is or whatever. You're not this. And I was like, I'm not sure how to take that, but
thanks.
Okay. What do you see out of my Instagram? Well, you're down to earth. And I'm like, that's, you run your own account. Yes.
So on the perception part of it, that was one thing for me as a kid. That was hard. Grew up with the Ripken name, and in Baltimore, it definitely was part of it. And but I had a hard time understanding. People love my dad, love the family, but then I ended up going to a good school. I had a good education. I'm no complaints from me. Yeah. But because I had those opportunities, they're like, well, he's a spoiled brat. And I go, did I do something? They go, no, you just have that look. And I'm like, the look. And I said, hey, if you think I'm terrible, I'm an awful person, I'm cool with that. But if you don't know me, at least give it a chance. And then if you're like, wow, Ryan's the worst, hey, I'm cool with that. Great. I would agree with you then. I don't think I'm that bad.
My boys have lived that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's because that's
tough, right? Like you're held to the standard, which my boys know, don't screw up because you're going to be a headline. Yeah. So you better not, do anything that would ever impact our family. But then you're also like what you're talking about. And those are hard. We've had moments of different things in our past that they have been impacted because of who their mom is. And not, and because
not directed with them specifically, but it's correlated. And also
it's exactly.
Well, and Frese, just like Ripken, Frese, those aren't the most common names, common last names. So when people hear it, they can kind of perk their head up. Like, wait a minute, is there a relation, connection? Oh, it's the correlation. And especially now because you've been here for so long, had the success. Talk about building up legacies here. I think you've done that. Yeah. Yeah.
But I tried to remind them they also have gotten to do a lot a good things. They get to go to Croatia and they get to
go to Croatia. There's no
different trips
there.
That a lot of things that have happened to them that
it's
so
blessings.
You got to take it, right?
Oh, it's blessings and perspective, but it's always the behind the scenes. I still laugh though when you said before, and we might have even started recording with that, the fact that you are so quiet here, but then people think you're loud elsewhere or at home or wherever it is. I'm just loud in general. So I can't relate. All right. We talked about this upcoming year, or we haven't talked about this upcoming year, but we talked about the competition a little bit in the Big Ten is unbelievable. Yep. You had Caitlin Clark come here last year. First off with that, is she one of the best that you've ever seen play? Like, how would you
Yeah.
rank facing Caitlin?
And I'm really fortunate because I got to coach Alyssa Thomas. I got to coach Christy Tolliver, a slew of All-Americans that are up in the rafters. I think what I really gained to appreciate, Caitlin at the beginning, I was like, oh, and then like just watching her evolve her game by getting in the gym. And, she used to just be a dominant scorer and then started taking her game from getting in the weight room to assists and then just like becoming a better leader. And just, her last 2 years were unreal. And I've never seen a player in this last year impact. She single-handedly has impacted and raised the level of our game from college to now. WNBA, she goes as draft night and the jersey sold out the next day.
Yeah.
My family in Iowa went into Dick's Sporting Good that day and the jersey is already, it's like, seeing it all is just incredible.
So it's just but I like it because you got to see her evolution as an individual. I think that's the really cool part.
Yep.
Even though you weren't there, in the locker rooms in Iowa, but you got to see her. Was it every single year that she played, or every other year?
Oh, yeah.
It was every year, right?
We played them
every year, but it's home or away now. Yeah.
Yeah, and and someone who stayed 4 years.
Yeah,
an Iowa kid. We recruited her, but I mean, she was going to Iowa State, like she was staying home, and rep
talk about building up a legacy. We just said about that.
Yeah.
I think it turned out really well for her.
I think so too.
I think she's on the run there. So what? Okay, so the next one upcoming, you said Juju Watkins out of USC.
Yeah,
that's going to be in College Park.
Yep.
And when the schedule comes out, I guess I'll know. But I gotta be there for that.
After it's supposed to come out after Labor Day, we'll get our conference schedule, and she's really, really good. I mean, she's just going to be a sophomore. Yeah. USC. UCLA will be, preseason top 5 in the country. They've got, stacked rosters and experience and depth.
I feel like the Big Ten in general just has so much depth. It's always good.
Adding the 4 teams out of the Pac-12 now, the Big Ten, and it's so what are we now? The big
was the Big 16?
16? What are we at? So you're going to see how many teams now are going to go to, postseason.
Yeah.
And, and it's going to be interesting because, another wiring, we play every team once, except we have a double, which our double is Ohio State, who's very good. But those single games, home or road, the impact of winning and losing and tiebreakers and how that's all good when you only get to play once.
Yeah.
So it's going to be
wild.
Wild.
Well, I know, and I'll be honest, being a Maryland guy, I do miss the rivalry of the ACC with the UNCs and the Dukes, and I just thought that was maybe it was just more nostalgic for me growing up. Mm-hmm. But I mean, competition-wise, Big Ten is unbelievable. Teams are really good. Each game, like you said, each team that you play, it matters. There's not really any. Like I say, off games. There's a lot of good teams. I don't even remember how many were top teams.
You can't have an off night, otherwise you're going to lose.
Yeah.
But that's again where change happens. Where I remember the weekend when I was told on a Friday that on Monday it was going to be announced, and in a state of shock because I left the Big Ten to come to the ACC and out to Maryland. I wasn't wanting to be in the Big Ten at that time.
Yeah,
calling home, so upset, to my parents. And full circle moment, then, here and having my boys and, the Big Ten footprint met our family's needs because my boys got to see their cousins and grandparents. And as we aged and I got to see my parents when normally I wouldn't. And then we got to dominate the conference. Now, like I said, there's 2 really heavy power, the Power 5 conferences, Big Ten, SEC. That's where you want to be.
Yeah.
And the other ones are trying to get to that level. And so it was a brilliant decision by Debbie Allen and the president, I think it was Mode at the time, when everyone was so upset, and I was as well. And now it's like brilliant.
It's ahead of the curve.
We were, Big Ten Network was ahead of the curve. The ACC was so far behind. They still are, with some things within the television stuff and just being ahead of it.
that's the other logistics and the business.
Oh, you wake up and you're the Pac-12 and you're no longer a part of the conference.
So my sister works at Colorado at CU in the athletic department. So she went there. She wanted to get away from Maryland. If she's either going to come to Maryland, UNC, or out to Colorado, fell in love with Colorado just, and growing up a little bit. So she's worked in the athletic department there since 2012, maybe. But anyway, last year in the summer, we're together. And all of a sudden, they're like, report, Colorado is going to leave the Pac-12 to go back to the Big 12. And I go, Rach, how you feeling? She's like, I don't know. And then in the blink, the Pac-12 was essentially gone, just everywhere. But I don't know. This is why I'm saying NCAA complicated, NIL complicated. What's not complicated is that Maryland's still. You guys are always still consistent. I'm not putting any expectations on you, but I just feel like every time you guys go out to play, you guys have a chance to compete and win every year. It feels like that's going to be the same thing this year. That seems.
I'm really excited about this year because we were able to address a lot of the needs that we needed to, and become competitive in the NIL space, and be able to recruit what we needed to. So the roster that we've been able to secure, we've have 6 new players out of the portal, and they're all with experience. So you're talking juniors, seniors, 5th years. And so we've got a ton of experience coming in, which we needed to bring in, and add a ton of depth, and we needed to add size. And so we have Duke, coming in November 10th. We haven't played them in a while, so they're coming to our place. It's on a Sunday. And then we go up to Syracuse, and we have, a very competitive non-conference, and then the conference slate will get rolling, and every game will be a battle. So
jam-packed.
So.
I'm excited for you guys, and this is just for anyone out there, if they wanted to help support Maryland, support what you guys are doing, because I think that's the part of we're talking about complicated again. Even though Maryland's a big university, doesn't
please
mean
go to the collective One Maryland. That's where you can have your biggest impact is right now. Now, at some point.
So what is that? If you can just enlighten me on how that works.
It allows us from the recruiting space right now to really help bring in the student athletes that you need on your roster, because we're competing against, all the other programs out there. And, some programs have bigger NIL collectives, and, it's still not 100% where it's pay for play. They still, like here at Maryland, you're going to go do something, right? You're going to, go out and speak and be a part of, different venues. You might be posting different things, depending on what groups. But eventually, with the revenue sharing is going to come into play, and once that comes into play, NIL will kind of be a subset, out of that, where it won't be as important as it is right now. So I'm hopeful that the NIL space is maybe 1 or 2 more years, and then when they get the revenue sharing in place for the athletes, it kind of puts everybody else on a more level playing field, because it's not right now.
It's not at all.
No.
But I think the part is just understanding for people out there going, oh, well, where's the money going? What's happening? Well, it's NCAA. College athletics was already so damn competitive, and now it's just on steroids, because now you have to handle so many different aspects of it. And we talked about that earlier. So I just wanted people to know, if they're like, hey, you know what, how could I actually help? Besides maybe doing a pickleball tournament next year.
Right. We got to get a pickleball tournament in place. But
I'm in for that.
You can't, as a student athlete, and it is their full-time job, that, if the 2 comparable programs are recruiting you, and they can offer the same in facilities and winning and, all that. And, I think I can really coach. But when it comes down to recruiting and 2 players, if this player can set themselves up, even after college, and maybe won't be, it's very hard to be playing professionally. If I can make X amount of money at this school and not here, or what those numbers are, it does matter. And
it does. That's I think the part is, I don't blame the kids for
No,
saying, "Hey,
I
it's
don't
a
either.
good deal." This is why I wanted
don't
to really drive that home. It's just
Yeah.
that's another hurdle that everyone's facing nowadays of what can you offer. But if a student athlete gets a great deal and it's very comparable, but there's a significant difference in the NIL.
We lost a player in the offseason that was a post player, and she came from a family, and there were like 5 kids. Dad had lost his job due to some health concerns. Mom, had an in-home daycare, and came to us, and and then out of it, I knew the school she was going to, that if we couldn't get her through our visit, we were going to have no shot. Because I knew what was going to be offered, and sure enough, she took it. At the other school, and I couldn't be mad at her because I understood the family situation. And that's I think the hardest thing for me is where it used to be a level playing field, and I could outwork, outcoach, and the relationship piece. In the outwork piece, I was building the relationship piece. And that stuff is, isn't as important anymore.
Yeah. And it's a difference. This is why you can tell talking to somebody, I already knew this again. You don't also last for a while if you're also not someone that's well respected in the spot. Everyone that says they go, we love Brenda, she's so great. You care about the individuals. And even if it's not in your favor, in this case, you want the best for her. I think that's the biggest thing. If you're looking, and that's why I think to develop the reputation culture, family was one of the first things you described. That's why you wish them the best. That's their situation. Everyone has a different situation. But does it sometimes stink? Yeah, it does. Just because you wish that they could be with you
the
guys.
The competitive side.
There it is, the competitive.
What
it's back.
Get you is like, this kid would have helped us win a lot of games. But I also have gotten over the years and through the transfer portal, this is where I've been able to, I used to like personally beat myself up of like, gosh, what could I have done differently? And I've gotten to a point, because I am secure of who I am and what I'm about, and that I do it the right way. Not everyone is a fit for us because we are a family. And if you're not about one another or your family, and you're about yourself, it won't fit work here. And like, not everyone is a fit. Everyone has different things. So I don't take it as personal as like, you know what, like there's probably a better fit out there. And that's okay.
Yeah. And that's also not just in sports, even in life. What I'm doing, and I'm even trying to grow and expand in my career. Some people might think that I'm a fit for what they're doing. Some people might not. It's okay. It's no ill will, but don't be discouraged by it, I guess is what you're saying. I'm working on the confidence myself. You've been doing what your next career after you were playing. You've been doing this longer than I've been doing this side of it. So I'm building confidence by the day. Hey, I told you, you're my hype person right now. You're like motivating me. Maybe I need to.
You're going to finish here, and within the week, you're going to go play some pickleball.
I'm going to play pickleball, and I'm also going to just have to like come to a Maryland practice and listen to you motivate and be like, you know what, I can go out and I can conquer the day today.
Come to a pregame talk. In the locker room.
Anyway, I want to hear Kyle give a pregame talk to you guys now. I'm really curious. It's all about passionate too. He is super passionate of sports. One thing here, and then we'll check on what's happening. Advice. If there's one thing that you've learned throughout the years, or one thing that you really have come to appreciate that you either learned or someone told you through your journey, both as a coach or even before that? One
of the things that I preach to our girls is, and I think it's hard in college, is to kind of be authentic and be who you are. And I think I really try to do that. Like, if I'm excited and I want to do a little dance move and I'm not very coordinated, I'm going to do a dance move. Like, I'm not going to be too cool, or, if I make a mistake, I'm going to share that, because I think, within that humility, they understand, like, it's okay. You're like, none of us are perfect. But be who you are. And I think in college, that is hard because you're trying to form that identity. And I think it's even harder coming up through social media that you see these, profiles that, like I said, aren't real, or I'm trying to find the best light and the lens to look the best. So, I think, on top of like what I shared with family and work ethic, but just being true to your character and who you are.
Yeah, I think that is so important more than ever. And Brad and I, with doing our own media, our motto we always say is we're trying to be the best version of ourselves, and we're trying to be our authentic selves, whatever that may be.
Yeah.
Because if you do that, things will shine through.
Yeah.
And if you don't, people can pick up on it really quickly when you're not being true to it. And even you're not afraid to dance.
I'm not, I mean,
are you known as being a dancer though?
No. Some of those, those moves on TikTok and, some of that, like when I would do TikTok with my boys during COVID, we were trying to find things to do, and I wanted to be relatable. It could only have like 3 moves of whatever. It can't complicate this. I don't have that kind of time to learn those kind of moves.
I still don't. I got I have a move where like I kick down the door, like I get my leg up high, and I do a lot of the same moves. So anyway, it's something.
I hope you enjoyed the interview with Brenda Frese, and it's not the last time we're going to be down there in College Park. We have a lot more coverage coming your way from the University of Maryland, but make sure you like and subscribe to the Off Script with Rip, and we will talk soon.